Welcome back. You're watching live from Paris on France 24. It's time for Media Watch with James Creedon, who's here with us in the studio.
Laura.
Good evening, James. Now, a really tragic story in Ireland. A 31-year-old woman died in hospital after she was denied an abortion, and that's prompted all sorts of outrage on the internet and elsewhere, hasn't it?
That's right. It was one of the top stories I saw this morning. A lot of people commenting on it on social media, and it's gone around the world. If we take a look at some pictures, this lady, her name was Savita Halapanavar, 31, living in Galway, and basically her pregnancy became distressed. She was 17 weeks pregnant. She asked several times over a 3-day period for that pregnancy to be terminated. She was told that there was still a fetal heartbeat and that this was a Catholic country. She spent a further 2 days in agony until the fetal heartbeat stopped, and then she later died herself of infections related to that prolonged labour. It was a miscarriage that was becoming rather prolonged. She asked for that to be sped up through abortion, and that was refused on the basis that it was, according to the doctor, illegal.
And that's the case, isn't it? In Ireland, abortion is illegal, even if it's deemed necessary to save the mother's life.
Well, this is where it gets quite complicated, because there was a case back in 1992. I'll show you a headline related to this on the Irish website Politico. This must never happen again. It's time to legislate for X. Now, that's a reference to the so-called X case, which caused a huge amount of scandal in 1992, where a teenage girl became pregnant and abortion was completely illegal at the time. And this established that if the mother's life is at risk, there could be an exception which would allow for abortion. Yet that was never legislated for over the course of 7 successive governments. It was meant to be legislated for. A lot of people are saying this is an act of complete cowardice, that the government has never actually legislated for this case, which clarified a kind of a constitutional question as to whether in this instance you could allow for abortion, which you in fact can. The Guardian's headline here, medically unnecessary death, they're calling it. And they said after 3.5 days of excruciating pain, she died of septicemia and E. coli after repeatedly begging for the end of that pregnancy. If you go to The Spectator, they say this was cruelty disguised as piety and cowardice misrepresented as principle. That is the continuing failure to legislate for abortion, even at that very narrow definition where the mother's life is at risk. So it's created,
clearly in danger, wasn't it?
Well, that's it. And in fact, some people said because this went on for about 3 days, this prolonged miscarriage, it was like having an open head wound, in the sense that it was you really allowing for infection to get in. And that's exactly what happened. She became infected. And
nevertheless, the pro-life crowds were out again today in force. They won't accept abortion in any situation whatsoever.
That's right. And they're saying that the abortion laws in Ireland are not the result of what happened here. They're being very dogmatic on that one. Youth Defence, which is one of the major proponents of against abortion. The tragic loss of Savita Halapanavar's life was not caused by Ireland's ban on abortion. They point out that the Medical Council does say where the mother's life is at risk, that there should be an intervention, and various other organisations pointing that out as well. Here, the Bishop of Killala, this is a rather mistimed opinion piece. Yesterday in the Irish Times, he probably didn't know that the story that was about to hit the story that was about to hit the front pages the following day. Abortion is never the basis for a humane or compassionate solution. Now, what we have seen, Laura, is a massive amount of reaction across social media to this story. Some people saying that they're glad that it got worldwide attention, really, for placing the spotlight on what this Twitter user calls a monstrosity. On Facebook, you had calls for protests outside the Parliament, outside Dáil Éireann in Dublin. There were indeed protests outside the Irish Embassy in London and across Ireland as well. And that's a photo outside the Parliament in Dublin. You can see people gathered. There was quite a large gathering this evening at 6 p.m.
Well, I think what people in Ireland are worried about is a reaction to this case that might loosen and make more liberal the abortion laws. The Taoiseach himself says he doesn't want to have a knee-jerk reaction, does he, until the investigation has been
That's right. There are 2 investigations underway, and I suppose the pro-life group are saying let's be careful not to get emotional about this one case. But a lot of people saying, really, the law does need to be changed, and this case illustrates that. So, lots of supposed pro-lifers advising calm over Savita's death, and this person, you can see that was retweeted 848 times. A woman died in a preventable death in an Irish hospital. Get angry, says Fee, and indeed a lot of people did.
It's a very emotional debate, isn't it? James Creedon, thank you very much
Laura.
indeed. Time for a short break. When we come back, all the latest international headlines, including President Obama giving his first press conference since being re-elected for a second term. He touched on a host of issues, but most of his speech dedicated to to what must be done to avoid that fiscal cliff, which is now just around the corner. More on that next.